I believe I figured out the meaning of life and the key to happiness. And I want to share with you how you can too. And it's not going out, living life to the fullest, having fun or some typical answer you'd get from a college kid, partying every night, going to clubs, doing lines of coke in the bathroom. It's not making an absurd amount of money online and driving supercars. And it's not, traveling the world, engaging with beautiful women. It's none of those things. And anyone who's ever really pondered this age-old question while watching a sunrise over the infinite horizon of a beautiful blue ocean can tell you that it's a lot deeper than that. And once you figure out that deeper meaning of life, you'll find that the key to happiness comes along with it. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. This is obviously a very, very deep topic. So I am simply going to share my story and the two key questions that led me to the realization that led me to what I believe to be the key to happiness and the meaning of life. My goal with this video is to just help you answer that question for yourself. And I think I can do that by leaving you with a perspective that you've maybe never heard before and those two key questions that I mentioned. Sound good? Good. All right. If you don't know me, my name's Nate. And similar to many other creators, you could say, in this space, I am a certain type of person. And there's a good chance that if you're watching this video, you are this certain type of person as well. And the certain type of person that I'm talking about is someone who's always had really big goals and an ambitious person who's never wanted a mediocre life. And being this type of person, you often find yourself wanting more, particularly wanting more materialistic things and seeking happiness and meaning in that, which isn't a bad thing, but it can be dangerous. The reason I say this is because this was literally me, right? This is my story, and this is what I lived. And I learned this lesson the hard way. So I'm just going to share my story from the beginning, starting from when I realized that I was this certain type of person. And I still remember it to this day vividly. It was the first time I ever really wanted something. And it was a pair of Jordan 13s. Carmelo Anthony 13s, black and yellow shoe, absolutely beautiful. And I just had to have it. There was no other option, had to get this shoe. But the only problem was that I didn't have any money. So I was in a bit of a predicament, you could say. But, being that certain type of person that I am, without even knowing it, I was going to find a way to get these shoes. And that's exactly what I did. So long story short, it was summer. It was super hot, super humid. The whole neighborhood was overgrowing because we hadn't really seen this type of humidity. So, everybody's yard was a mess. So I used my existing network to find a little landscaping job. I did all the weeding, all of the, I edged the sidewalks with a shovel, did all of the mulching with mulch bags they had already ordered, mowed the grass. And it was hard, right? This is hard labor. It wasn't easy. And I was 13, probably 14. But it's what I had to do to get what I wanted. So it's what I did. It took me about 2 weeks to finish this up. And once I did, I got paid. And was a pivotal point in my life because I came to the realization that a lot more is attainable in this world than I thought. And from that point on, I was this certain type of person. I became the person that would work as hard as I could to get what I wanted. From building a shoe collection and then buying and reselling sneakers to gaming, buying a bunch of consoles and spending a ridiculous amount of money on Fortnite skins. It's a dark phase of my life. We're not going to talk about that. But eventually this led to business when I got a little bit older. Nothing too crazy, right? Nothing blew up off the start. It takes time. But, it really opened my eyes to the reality of the whole, make money online niche and the possibilities and the amount of money that really could be made online. And I was going to be one of the ones that did it, because of the certain type of person that I am. And this worked for me up until the point where I got my first car. So my first car, BMW E93, absolutely beautiful, hardtop convertible. I got a deep sea blue color. I love that thing, but it was only after I bought this car that I came to a realization. I'll explain. Let me get a better angle because sunset or sunrise is kind of over. I'm gonna get a better angle where the lighting's actually on me. So give me a second. All right, lighting should be a lot better now. Can't see the beach anymore, unfortunately. But back to the topic at hand. I eventually purchased this car. It was only after I purchased it that I came to this big realization. And this realization is the takeaway from everything that I just told you. The takeaway from me working hard to get those pair of shoes that I wanted, me starting online businesses, sneaker reselling and all that. everything, up to the point where I got my car. The takeaway is that if I continued to live the way that I was living, I was never going to be happy because I was always going to want more. There's always going to be the next big flashy thing, and there was always going to be more money to be made. And if I didn't have a bigger reason why, it would essentially all be meaningless. Because if you're making money just for the sake of making money, you're going to find yourself in a never ending cycle, right? Because, like I said, there's always going to be the next big flashy thing and more money to be made. Making a ton of money isn't a problem on its own, but it isn't a solution on its own either. And what I mean by that is that you can't accomplish anything by just generating wealth, because money is simply a resource. What you do with that resource is what determines a lot, right? Because what you do with that resource usually stems from your answer to these two key questions. So here are the two key questions that helped me figure out the meaning of life and the key to happiness. Number one, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do with your life, and what do you want to accomplish on this earth? Number two, who do you want to be as a person, and what legacy do you want to leave behind? So let's dive into it. I'll start with the first question because it's the first question that I had to ask myself, right? And for me, at least, I had no clue what I wanted to accomplish in life. I never really thought of that. And up until this point, I was just, living for the short-term satisfaction, living day by day. And when I came to the realization that I was always going to want more and never going to be satisfied, it wasn't a turning point just yet, but it was definitely a pivotal point, because I really started to think about that question. It was driving me crazy. What do I want to accomplish? And then, as time went by, it would continue to drive me crazy. And it took me a while to actually come up with an answer. So fast forward a little bit, I was off to college, and college really put me in a environment where I could seriously start to come up with an answer to this question. Because, college is really fun. I'm not going to lie. College is fun. I met a lot of good people, good community, and there's obviously the element of, partying and girls and all that stuff. But, similar to making money, it's a never-ending cycle if you're chasing happiness in those things. So that's not what I wanted. And near the end of the first semester, I finally came to that turning point. It was a late night in November. I was sitting in my car, and I started to piece together the answer to both of those questions, actually. And the reason I couldn't come up with an answer to the first question sooner was because I didn't have an answer to the second. I had to figure out who I wanted to be as a person in order to figure out, what that best version of myself, what that person could actually accomplish. So answer both of these questions at the same time. Who do I, Nate Harris, want to be as a person, and, what do I want to accomplish with my life? And the first question is simple, right? I've always had this picture of the man that I want to be, and I genuinely believe that God created me to be that certain type of person that I am. He gave me the gift of entrepreneurship and the drive and tenacity that it takes to succeed. And, that night I decided that I wasn't going to take that for granted anymore, and I wasn't going to let that go to waste. And I decided the person I wanted to be right then and there. And from that point on, it was like I flipped a switch. And that's the moment that I really became successful. Not when I made a certain amount of money, or not when I, bought a certain car, or did certain thing. It doesn't matter. Status doesn't matter, because what really determines your success is your mindset and the type of person that you decide you want to be. So when I made that decision and flipped that switch, that was when I became successful. Right? And that's what you need to do. So this led me to growing my relationship with the Lord and locking in on business. This is when I started my whole copywriting journey, which is how I started. 14-hour days of research, writing, work for months. And it was a grind, but it felt amazing because I decided this is who I want to be. I don't care how hard it is right now. But I fell in love with the grind, right? Which is, that might be corny, but I've always been a excellent writer. I've always loved writing, and channeling that talent, you could say, to something that I could actually monetize was great for me. This business, like any other business, took off fast because I put my time and effort into it, and I devoted myself to it, right? And I realized that it was for me. So I was, it was kind of what I was passionate about. Eventually, this led me to the outreach stage. Got my first LRO client. Kept going. Eventually got a 4-figure retainer, and from there it's just continued to scale. And then I moved on past just copywriting to the whole back to mid end of the funnel for info product businesses and people that I work with. And I ended up finding massive success in that, and I thank God every day. But back to the topic at hand, back to the second question. So that was my answer to the first question. The second question, what do I want to accomplish, right? And there's a lot I want to accomplish, right? I'm a very, very ambitious person. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I want to be a millionaire by 21 so I can provide for my family, take care of everything, put my sisters through college or do whatever they want, buy my parents a new home, new car, like all that stuff, all the typical, I want to retire my parents. But it's true because that's really what I want. I want to travel, see most of the world, really. Eventually, I want to have a family, raise a son and a daughter, and just be a good father, which is terrifying to me, at least, because it's a huge responsibility, and it's not something you can take back once you raise your kids a certain way. But ultimately, what I want to accomplish in life is my calling, right? Because I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, I believe that we all have a calling, and I had to find my calling. And if you aren't a Christian, you might look at this differently, but I believe that your calling is your purpose. So that's what I pray every day. I ask God to direct my steps, like it says in Proverbs 16:9. The Lord, you will plan your ways, but the Lord will direct your steps and guide your path. And that is what I want to accomplish with my life. The things that I mentioned, but ultimately my purpose and my calling. And I believe that that is the meaning of life. Find your purpose and find your calling. And I don't want that to sound like a vague answer, because I believe that it's real and there's a very serious, specific answer for everybody, but it's different for everybody. And that's something that you have to find. That's something that I had to find, something that everybody has to find, right? And once you find your calling, you'll know what type of person that you're created to be. Once you find out what type of person that is, you'll find out, what you actually can accomplish as that person. And like I said, once you find the meaning of life, you'll find that the key to happiness comes along with it. And the key to happiness is really simple. It's learning contentment. You can easily be content when you know your purpose and your calling, because once you find your purpose and your calling, nothing changes no matter what happens. When you're at the lowest of lows, nothing changes. The highest of highs, nothing changes, because you know your purpose, you know your calling, nothing changes, keep going. You could completely, go bankrupt, your business could fail. Nothing changes, you know your purpose, you know your calling. It's a setback, you know what you have to do, keep on going. Personal life could be going awful. Your girlfriend could leave you, God forbid, but a loved one could pass away, right? But it doesn't change anything, because you know your purpose, you know your calling. It's a setback, but you have to keep going because you know your purpose and your calling, and that's not something that changes. Although you may have to pivot, it doesn't completely change because that's your calling. No matter what happens, you know what you're called to do. Nothing changes. Therefore, be content in everything, even in the worst of circumstances. So that pretty much sums it up. That is what I believe to be the meaning of life and the key to happiness. So I hope you found value from this video. I didn't want this to be, a generic my story type of video, so I wanted to add some value. And if you did find value from this, make sure to subscribe, because there's going to be a lot more where that came from. And also subscribe to my newsletter, because I will be sending you value-packed emails. First link in the description. Make sure to check it out. Thank you guys for watching. Love you. Bye.